All right, well, what we were talking about before we started is this weekend I'm actually, I'm running, I don't know if I'm running it, I'm hiking the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim. It's about 44, 45 miles, who's counting? And then I'm doing this as like a training checkpoint for this event I'm doing in the fall called the Wasatch 100-mile trail run in the mountains here. And you know, every time I go to run, I think I've talked about this before, but it sucks. And it doesn't matter who you are or how many times you've ran. Every time I go put my shoes on to go do a really long run, you know, I'll call it the bitch voice, gets going in the back of my head. You know, there's something else you could be doing. Maybe you could skip this one. Your back hurts, your knees hurt. You know, do you want to go spend this time right now? And every time, you know, even though I hear that, the other voice comes in and I'll get going, right? And it had me thinking about this quote, or this statement that says, the quality of your life directly depends on the amount of discomfort you are willing to endure. And, you know, the longer I've lived, the more things that I've done, the more true this is. And most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid as much pain or discomfort as possible. And, you know, modern life is very easy, and it's set up essentially to be as conducive as possible for us to avoid as much pain and discomfort as possible. And the reality is the more that we embrace that, the more that we lean into that, the more difficult our life often is, right? If you look at society right now, statistics, mental health is at an all-time low, or statistically it's at an all-time high as far as people suffering from things like mental health. And it's interesting that the easier and the more comfortable our modern life gets, a lot of times the opposite is true, right? We don't have a happier, healthier, easier population. It seems to be that the opposite is true, and that more people are suffering than ever. And a big reason of that is because, you know, so many people are told to embrace, you know, these easy things. They're mentally coddled, things like that. And I was thinking about, you know, how this applies to salespeople. And we were talking about, you know, some of our sales reps, some of our team members, and you know, look, it's not lost on Dan and I that this industry is very difficult, right? People forget that we've been there, done that, you know, to a level that a lot of people don't really understand. And so we don't forget what it's like for you all. We don't not know what it's like to have to grind on sales. You know, we don't forget what it's like to have to spend all your time, effort, money to try to grow a business, to try to grow a book of business, to sit there and do sales and prospect the leads and call the leads and meet with people. We remember what that's like. And, you know, as I was on my run on Saturday, I was thinking about, I can't say too much who this person is, because there's a chance that they might see this on social media or something. But many years ago, we were doing door-to-door sales. And I would say 16, 17 years ago, myself and this individual, we were in the exact same place in life, meaning we had the exact same standard of living. We made pretty much, you know, at that time, we were both starting the same career. And when we would go out and knock doors, we had a quota, right? And as soon as this individual would get a sale and would essentially be, you know, trending to hit quota, would go home immediately. And I wouldn't. I would go, okay, well, you know, now I've hit quota essentially. I'm going to keep working. And I always wanted to overdrive, right? I always wanted to be in the bonus level, or, you know, for some of you reps, top tier, or whatever it was called. And I've watched that time after time. He didn't want to go through any extra discomfort, right? It was, I did the bare minimum. I'm off. I'm done. And what would happen was inevitably a couple of those deals would always drop off. And the difference would be, you know, almost double in our paychecks, because he was always at or under quota, and I always ended up overdriving. And I've watched this kind of play out over the years of our life, that kind of, you know, and although both of us aren't even doing close to what we were initially, I kind of look at the the difference of paths of where that's led us in our lives. And it made a massive impact financially, right? And I believe that's 100% because of this, because I was willing to endure more pain, more discomfort, longer than he was. Nothing else. And then you compound that over time, over the years, it's made a massive difference. And so what's happened is over time, as I've watched that, as I've seen that play out, it's emboldened me, right? Like I know that so deep that the longer, the more that I can endure the pain, whether it be mental discomfort, whether it be just, talking to people or doing something that you just flat out don't want to do, right? It's amazing to me how many people that we bring into this business, either we recruit them as agents or we hire them as an employee, and they start doing sales and they're like, this sucks. I can't do it. I'm like, well, what did you think it was going to be like, And one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot, my son and I have been watching Western movies, and we were watching, I can't remember what it was, but it was, the time was like 1929 or 1930. And he said, well, that wasn't even 100 years ago, and look how different life is, And I think about that all the time, that we as humans, 90 years ago, you had to work all day, every day, just to survive as a human being, essentially, right? And now we live in modern life where we've convinced ourselves that sitting in a nice, warm, air-conditioned building with no threats, nothing, having to make phone calls to other human beings is some sort of existential threat and so miserable that we can barely bring ourselves to do it. Or driving around and visiting people and trying to develop relationships to network to help people with their health insurance is somehow so, mind-boggling difficult that so many people can't even bring themselves to do it, right? And, it's amazing for me not to kind of just be a hard ass about it and say how mentally, weak people are and how we've convinced ourselves that some of these things are so hard to endure, right? Or when if we'd have been existing 80, 90 years ago, we would have to be working our fingers to the bone all day, every day, just to have food or just to be able to support ourselves as human beings, right? One of the quotes that I really like from Tony Robbins relative to this is, change happens when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, right? And so many people, even though this quote is true, so many people will stay in that same level of pain, right? And just like this individual that I talked about earlier, that individual has never been able to elevate from the pain of staying the same and endure the pain of change instead. And they're in basically the exact same situation in life that they've been year over year over year. So, I want you to ask yourself, what kind of discomfort are you willing to put yourself through in order to progress in life, right? This quote stuck out to me. Most mistake discomfort as a signal to stop, while the great ones see it as evidence of progress, right? And like I was talking about, one of the things why I've really come to love, endurance athletics and the Ironman stuff is it sucks. It really does suck. But as I'm able to just tell myself, nope, keep going. Oh, yep, my knees hurt, my ankles hurt, my hips hurt, my back hurts, keep going, keep going, keep going, right? What that does is that builds a confidence and that builds a trust in yourself that will keep going, and it makes you be able to apply that over into every aspect of your life, right? So that's kind of what my message for you all is. The final thing is the discomfort doesn't end, right? It just changes. And no matter what you do in your life, whether let's say you're grinding in a career and you get that promotion that you've wanted, right? That doesn't mean that your discomfort should stop. That doesn't mean that you arrive at this place where everything's easy all the time and you have no more discomfort. All that means is that it changes and you level up, and there's going to be a whole different set of circumstances and difficulties that you need to solve at that level, right? It doesn't matter, some people think, oh, if I could just make X amount of dollars, oh, if I could just get this promotion, if I could only have, this amount of people on my book of business, then all my problems would be solved. That's not how it works, right? When you're in that state, there's always going to be a new set of challenges, a new set of difficulties that you need to solve. And so when you can develop that mindset of, hey, the quality of my life is going to be directly dependent on the amount of discomfort that I'm able to endure and solve, that's when you'll be able to continue to win in life, right? And you will always have to keep doing things to keep you in that state of mind, because it's very easy. You know, even for somebody who's mastered these abilities, these techniques, it's easy to get out of the rhythm, out of the habit. And you have to continue to challenge yourself and put yourself in a mindset where you can do that, right? And that applies no more than what we're doing with any sort of sales, right? So appreciate you guys. That's what I got for the inspiration, motivational stuff. Trainings and updates. Moving on, guys. Just a reminder, right, from last week, don't be a sales raptor. Remember what that is. You're always trying to push the boundaries and not do things the right way, attack the fences and escape. And, I circled up with some of our sales leaders last week and went through it really in detail, right? Don't make it difficult on yourselves. Do a good job. Be good agents. Did everyone see this news last week about Elevance? So, guys, if you look at the historical relationships that Dan and I and Agent Boost have chosen to focus on, right? When we say, hey, these are our preferred carriers. These are the ones that we want to work with. These are the ones that, we want to try to build with. How often have I been pushing Anthem or Elevance over the past couple of years? 0, right? So if you didn't see this past week, Anthem Elevance essentially announced that all of their MAPDs nationwide are going suppressed. And not only did they, what that means is they're taking them off all of the teledigital enrollment platforms, the Sunfires, the Ascends, all of those. They've made them paper apps only, but surprise, surprise, they're also taking the paper apps off the website, and good luck finding how to find a paper application. So essentially, they're saying don't sell these products, and they're still quote unquote commissionable. You just can't find them and write people on them. So I think this really sucks. There's no other way to say it. Dan and I are really frustrated about it. We went pretty hard on this on our podcast on Friday that's gonna drop today or tomorrow. I think it's a terrible thing to do to the industry. I think this trend that's emerged over the past year and a half of some of these carriers filing plans and then making them, suppressed or difficult to find is at a high level, the very definition of steering. And I don't think CMS, in fact, I'll go on record right now and say, I don't think CMS will let carriers continue to do this, where they file plans, say it's available, and then basically make it impossible for people to enroll in. I think that's not a very healthy business practice. And if these carriers want to be in the business of making money, they want to be in the business when it's good and be able to profit, they also need to be in business when it's not so good and be able to solve things in a different way without screwing the consumers. So what I'm saying is, don't plan on writing any Elevance because it's not going to show up in your Sunfire platforms. You still, if somebody absolutely has to have it, you have to find a paper app for all non-DSNPs. Their DSNPs are still commissionable. They'll still show up. You can still put people on those. My recommendation would be, I wouldn't write them if I was you. I'm not saying we at Agent Boost are not selling Elevance. I'm hopeful that things course correct in the future. We're going to be making some moves in the future, especially with ACA, where we were hopeful they would become a really good partner of ours, but it's just not that way right now. Not only that, if they're doing that already this year, what do I think is going to happen for AEP 2026, plan year 2026? Well, it's probably a pretty good sign they're going to have to SAR some of those areas, right? If it's that unhealthy, if it's that unprofitable that they're needing to do that. One of the things that we'd heard and we talked about on the podcast was that United, right, gained a lot of membership this last AEP, and what happened to United in the past couple of weeks. Dropped major, right? Because they announced, surprise, surprise, they took on all that membership and it wasn't really profitable for them. So the rumor is Anthem freaked out, Elevance freaked out, thinking they have a lot of overlap in a lot of those areas, and that United would somehow dump or shift that membership to them. And so they wanted to kind of like get ahead of it. All this like gamesmanship of the carriers, right? I think it sucks for the consumer, sucks for the agent. I think it's really short-sighted of Elevance to basically go, oh, we got to focus on our quarterly share price, and profitability right now, to essentially torch the goodwill and of the agents that they've had for a long time, because it takes years and years to build those kind of trusting relationships, right? So update there. Again, reminder of effectuation, guys. We're doing better on this month over month. This has been a big focus of everybody in the industry. All the carriers are doing scorecards now. They're all, beating Dan and I over the heads about this on our bi-weekly and monthly calls as well. So keep, writing good quality business. Make sure you're doing your follow-up campaigns. Make sure you're following up until it actually effectuates, meaning it actually goes active, right? Pipelining and lead management, just briefly, just a reminder, keep using CRM. Pipeline your deals, don't lose track of things. Be good agents. I promise that if you can pipeline and keep track of your leads in a good way, it'll make you more money, keep you more organized, and everybody will be happier. Us, the clients, yourselves, you guys will all be doing better, making more money. Reminder of the community center, we've been using this a lot. There's lots of great resources in here that you all can access, trainings, information about the company and trainings that are going on, all put there. Reminder to keep focusing on the T65s, right? You should have a good process. If you don't know how to work T65s effectively, please reach out to your sales leaders, your team managers, myself, anybody, and we'll make sure we get you the right training that you need on the turning 65s. Reminder again, guys, we're paying a $500 referral bonus when that agent becomes active, meaning they've produced any 15 types of business policies. We'll pay you a $500 referral bonus on that. And then we changed this agent elite training, the elite agent training, to the 20th and the 21st. If any of you have anybody that want to come to this training, maybe if it's been a minute since you've been active in the industry and you want to kind of like get some quick updates as to like what's going on, what's working right now in May of 2025. These are really great trainings talking about, your goals, state of the industry, current carrier portfolio and updates, going over things like what just happened with Elevance and why. I think it's very important that you all understand like of the landscape of the carriers that we're doing business with, right? So really, really great training. And I keep talking about this 80% success rate, meaning any agent that's come to these trainings has an 80% success rate, meaning they're still in this industry right now, they're still producing, and as we all know, this industry has a very high washout rate or failure rate. It's about 90% over 2 years, meaning 90% of agents are not in the insurance industry within 2 years after them obtaining their license. Reminder of the trip for Grand Cayman next year. Dan and I are starting to get our RFPs are back for the hotels, building this trip already. It goes by fast, right? Right now is when you start building the basis for the trip for next year, right? It's 800 point minimum. We had it at 750. That just doesn't matter because everyone's going to be way past that. We'll start sending out updates every week. Sharice is just putting the final updates on the new tracker, and we'll start putting that out for you guys. Again, WellCare's 5 points, Humana's 2.5. Golden Rule and Allstate are each 2 points too. That reminds me, we've been really pushing, like Allstate and Golden Rule, these ancillary programs for everybody. If you want to sell those and you feel like, you don't have the training, whatever reason, please let me know. Please let your team leaders know. We want to really increase those sales. In fact, Dan and I and Jeff are flying out to United Healthcare's headquarters on the 6th. we're one of 5 companies in the country that got invited out as an emerging, developing partner with them. And it's really interesting because we've been doing a lot of Golden Rule, UH1 Golden Rule. With all the hundreds of thousands of United Healthcare Medicare Advantage plans, we've never been invited out to the mothership. But we're going out there for Golden Rule to pitch their CEO on our business development plan. And so part of that is going to be, what do all of you need to be trained on so you can all sell more, right? One thing that's going to be coming back real quick are the short-term medical, the STMs, as there's going to be some adjustments with the ACA space again. So there's big opportunity in dental, vision, hearing, in the plan enhancers, in the indemnity plans with both of these carriers, and then also with like short-term medical plans as well. And they're a great way to supplement your income. One of the things that we could be better on is if you're a new agent and you're having a hard time navigating the financial gap, especially in this mid-time of year and towards the end of the year when commissions are being prorated. These commissions are not prorated, right? And there's going to be the option where you can probably even get up to a 6-month advance in the very near future for selling the dental, vision, hearing plan enhancers. And those are a really great way to get cash in your bank this month, next week when you sell those plans, so you can grow your business. Shout outs, I don't even think I did this week, but we're gonna do all the end of month incentives and awards and things like that. This month, if you all could do a favor and hit it really hard the next, today, Tuesday and Wednesday, close out the month. We're close to hitting Mike's goals of where I feel like we're doing where we need to be with the company. So we're just about a couple hundred short as a company. And so if we can put in a good effort for the first, well, always, but especially the first couple of days this week, today, Tuesday and Wednesday, I'd really feel good. I want to stay where we're at as far as like our trend rates and our run rates as the company. So that's all I got for you guys. Appreciate you. Thanks for coming, all of you that are here in attendance and online live. I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.